Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. A little blast from the past for you on Better Than I Found It. Former collegiate golf director for TaylorMade, Tim Huet, joins me today. Tim, who retired back in 2018, was a regular in the world of college golf for almost 25 years. And his contributions to our sport resulted in his induction into the GCAA Hall of Fame back in 2014. But his influence on one of the most special GCAA awards, the Jan Strickland Award, is still felt to this day. The award, given annually to the nation's top assistant coach, was the brainchild of Tim back in the fall of 2002, and it has grown in prestige ever since. Tim and I talk about that and much, much more. It was great catching up with this very special man. Hope you enjoy. Okay, Better Than I Found It listeners, please join me in welcoming to the podcast former TaylorMade collegiate golf director Tim Huet. Tim, it's great to have you on Better Than I Found It today, and it's just great to catch up.
Thank you, Mike. It's a distinct pleasure, especially this time of year when we're caused to reflect on so many things. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I asked you about this coming on to this podcast, I don't know, many, many months ago, and we kind of got lost in our communications and didn't get back with each other. And I was really grateful last week when you said, hey, I dropped the ball. I want to do this. Let's do this. And so now we're finally getting together to record. There's so many interesting things I'm going to learn about you today, but the college golf world doesn't know a lot of what you're going to tell us today, which I really want to go over. Your connection to the college game was very, very complete. You were in and out of college golf for a long, long time. But since your retirement in 2018, our paths haven't crossed, and COVID happened and a lot of different things happened. So we've just kind of lost connection. So one, I want to catch up. One, I see you're living in Oregon. Is that correct?
That's correct. Bend, Oregon.
Bend?
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be one of my favorite places on earth.
Right, close to Sun River, right?
Yeah,
and
Sun River.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a great memory in Bend, so that's great. I know it's a beautiful place. High desert in Oregon is a gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Yes, it is.
It really is. But like many veteran coaches my age or a little younger, maybe a little older, remember you mostly and mainly because of your close connection to college golf through your work with TaylorMade and the college program that you started there. But there's a whole lot more to your history than just the college golf part of it. So if you could do me this favor, let's go back to, I guess, pre-college golf, how you got into the game. Just give me a brief history. And I know you were an assistant golf pro and a head golf professional, a lot of different things going on there. Talk to me about how you ended up in college golf.
Will do. I had the typical start as a caddy. One of the benefits of that was I actually worked in the caddy shack for $35 a week, which afforded me the ability at Hawthorne Valley Country Club in Solon, Ohio, which is a Ross course, to play there every night. It was just, I was on vacation the entire summer, and my poor mother had to pick me up at 9:30 every evening.
Well, $35 a week could go a long way in those days, wouldn't it?
Well, then, I also learned how to gamble then, too. Then from there, I went to college, played basketball and golf. I was more of a basketball player than I was a golfer. Had I ever played golf the way I played basketball, I would have been a much better golfer.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, I worked at Lakewood Country Club on the west side of Cleveland in the bag room. In fact, slept there all one summer because it was too long of a commute. It was an hour commute from Bedford, Ohio, where Tom Weiskopf is from, to Westlake, Ohio. And Lakewood Country Club is a Tillinghast course where they had not a buy.com, but a Corn Ferry event 2 or 3 years ago. I then moved from that position to a second assistant to a first assistant. Long story short, I spent 8 years there under a marvelous man by the name of Jerry Boykin, who's a native of Mississippi, and he comes out of the Lew Worsham tree.
Oh, wow.
Lou Worsham of Oakmont and Coral Ridge in Lauderdale.
1947 U.S. Open champ.
That's exactly right. And that was a special experience, a special time for me. During that time, I had the ability or the inability, depending upon how you look at it, to play a little. I played in Orlando in the mini tours for 3 years in the late 70s. I could play just well enough to tease myself I could play. And had I continued down that route, it probably would have had some disastrous implications to my family life. And I didn't want to turn into a golf bum by the time I was 40. So I know that sounds a little brusque, but had I played golf the same way that I saw and reacted on the basketball court, I've been much better. I was so consumed with the game and consumed with positions, and that lent itself to me in viewing would-be players, in trying to analyze what, if anything, their futures might hold for them. However, that's without being able to cut them open and find out what's inside their heads and stomachs.
Welcome to the world of recruiting.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly trying to figure that out. And if you could get beneath the surface in recruiting, you would have something. And if you don't know what you're getting. That's the truth. And the same way with the players, if they don't try to do the same with the coach, they're going to maybe get surprised as well. So you obviously had to be able to do that early on.
That's exactly right.
Well, how did you get to TaylorMade? Because you went from being an assistant pro, playing some mini tours, and then shortly thereafter, you're being hired at TaylorMade as like one of their very first salesmen or sales reps.
Yep, I was a head golf professional for 2 years in Lima, Ohio. Was really disenchanted with the business. We were a family of 2 at that time, soon to be a family of three children. I mean, and just thought that wasn't the best way to go about things. And then through a friend of a friend, whose name was Taylor, no relation to the company, but he was working for the company, Jimmy Taylor. Actually, parenthetically, he played for Coach Williams at Houston, marvelous player, and he worked for FootJoy. And he had ties with Gary Adams, put in a good word for me with Gary. Then I was hired. And so that was in 1982. Company was started in 89, and I started in 82. Company was started in 79. I'm sorry.
79. Yeah, I remember when it started, and you were one of the early hires, but it wasn't too long after that you became the regional sales manager, so you must have been a good sales rep.
Either that or I wanted to get off the quote proverbial highway.
Okay.
And it was probably a little bit of both. But I did enjoy. I was moved up to regional sales manager, and then from then spent a couple of years doing that. And then I was asked if I wanted to move to Carlsbad to become director of program promotions. And this is the inception of the college strategy. So we had no college program at the time, and that's when we started. The college program.
Do you think that most, if not all, the major manufacturers in the world of golf were realizing that the PGA Tour was getting filled with guys who played college golf? We need to be connected to college golf. We've got to do it some way.
I totally agree with that. And there was a great example of success, and that great example was Ping.
Mm-hmm.
Ping had a number of quality people who were also quality players with beyond quality equipment, and they did a marvelous thing with their golf bag program. And their support of collegiate golf was just amazing. So we could not duplicate that, but philosophically, I wanted to attempt to make a broad-based statement to college golf as Ping had, and they continue to do so. And fortunately, so does TaylorMade.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, Titleist has done it, Callaway's done it. All the major manufacturers have given to college golf in a big, big way. And at TaylorMade, that's also the case. But you were one of the, you started, tell me when you started the college program, what year it was, and how long you worked with that closely.
That would have been around 1987, 1988. This goes hand in hand with when we started the Easter events for the AJGA, and also hand in hand with the Red River Classic,
Mm-hmm.
in partnership with Greg Grost at Oklahoma and Jimmy Clayton at Texas. That was probably the first tournament of its kind in which some substantial dollars were committed to a collegiate event. We then followed that up with the Miami Doral Park Invitational at Doral Park, and that was in another huge expenditure. So there were two statement events, and in a way, I can't believe the status of events to this day, how they're presented, and the amount of monies that are committed in support of college golf. It just baffles me.
I think when I played, of course, it didn't exist. Coaches and players that came before me, there was literally nothing. There was, I mean, almost nothing. So to see where it's gone today, where we can go to a tournament and it's like a tour event almost because of the way manufacturers have jumped in. And I know TaylorMade's a big part of that. But what was your main I don't know, impetus is the word, but what was your main goal or focus early on in the program? How did you arrange it so you could be competitive in that market?
The main impetus, the main focus was the trickle down effect. We know if we could get equipment, or at least we felt if we could get equipment in the best players' hands at the local, club, regional, state level, then we were going to impact business. As an addition to that, though, we were also going to nurture relationships with gifted players. And that could, in fact, then turn into some type of a professional relationship once that player or players turn professional. So that it was all pyramid of influence. We were going for the top of the pyramid and then working it down. I know that you remember the days when if you walked into any bag room, the set of choice were TaylorMade metalwoods and Ping irons.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a reason for that, because at that time, good or bad, TaylorMade didn't have any real competition, and Ping made the absolute best set of irons known to man.
I think you could still play those Ping clubs today. Honestly, I do. They would be
Absolutely.
fine.
I wish I had them.
Well, so you got very heavily involved with college golf. Obviously, I got to see you a few years later after you started that program, and it's actually the second time you could because you left the company in about 91 or 2. Is that correct? Not in there?
That's correct.
What did you do during that time before you got back in 2000?
I starved. I made I was a vice president at the time in 91 when I resigned. And I'd be perfectly honest with you, people have heard me make this statement before, but I made a bulletproof 42-year-old decision.
Okay.
I couldn't be touched. I mean, I had all the answers. And come to find out, I had none. And I resigned from TaylorMade because the company was going through a restructuring. And I was one of two vice presidents that were going to be retained, myself and Mark King. Mark King obviously has had just a marvelous career in and out of golf. And then from then I went on to work for Ashworth for about 2 years. and then started a putter company with two of the former VPs from TaylorMade called Scepter Golf. It was all based on sight alignment, which made perfect sense, and it worked, except it took too long to fit, so it never made it on retail. And then the last thing I did was I was involved with my own sports marketing company based out of Portland, Oregon, called NLC Sports, North Left Coast Sports. And it was, I didn't deal with college golf, but I dealt with college athletics and selling product to them with Adidas product to them with Under Armour and the like.
Okay. And eventually that led to getting back into golf, college golf. Well, actually with TaylorMade in 2000. How'd you get back to the company? And then let's take it forward with a very special award that still exists today.
That's a great question. Adidas, big Adidas AG, Germany, bought TaylorMade in the late 90s. One of the guys that was involved with the putter company was made chairman of the board of TaylorMade. He then hired Mark King. I read it, this is as simple as it gets. I read an article in Golf Week saying what was going on with TaylorMade. I sent them both an email. I said, if I can be of any assistance to you, let me know. 10 days later, King calls me up. He says, can you come down and talk? And, I about cried. I said, yeah, I'll be there. And so the first role I was asked to accomplish was to resurrect the college program. And that's what I did.
Well, it obviously was, that's when I got to know you, when you got back into college golf the second time.
Yeah.
Is when I got to know you. I was at Oklahoma State as an assistant at the time. And, the college golf world seemed a lot smaller then, even than it is now, because, everybody knew everybody. And, but anyway, it was a couple of years later, after you'd been there a couple of years, a very special employee at TaylorMade, Jan Strickland, passed away from cancer, I believe. Tell me,
yeah.
And then you created what was called the Jan Strickland Award, which is today still one of the great awards in college golf, given annually to the top assistant coach in college golf. Tell me how all that came about, the complete genesis of it. I want to know.
Well, I got goosebumps when you just said that. So the company moved to Vista, California in '82. Jan's office was right next to John Duffy's office. John Duffy was in charge of manufacturing, shipping, receiving, everything that went on in the entire assembly area. And this business was completely new to, quote, greater Carlsbad Vista because nobody was there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Jan went out, just like a college coach would do if she was starting her own program, and identified, recruited, retained, coached, nurtured, everything, disciplined employees. She was a real taskmaster, yet she was terribly empathetic, and she was very family oriented, and created this atmosphere in which you wanted to work and you wanted to work for her. It was very, very positive. She had an amazing sense of humor and was life of the party from the standpoint of she gave the greatest Christmas parties known to man. And she was so thankful to her people, to her staff, to her employees. They in turn returned that favor. And so after she died in September of 2022, it was, for many of us, it left a huge void. As from a personnel standpoint, from a key personnel standpoint within the company, and we didn't know what we were doing with it. But so I just thought, I'll approach Greg Gross and think if see if he's interested in creating this award. At that time, Greg was with the GCAA, and he was still GCAA was still fighting to get their feet on the ground, and so he readily accepted the opportunity. We worked things out, and to see the winners on that list today is just amazing.
Well, yeah, it's an amazing group of young assistant coaches. Most of them have now become head coaches. But when you describe Jan, I didn't know Jan, but when you describe Jan, it sounds like a great young assistant coach, building something from the ground up, doing it, in the trenches with the players. I mean, it sounds like assistant coach to me.
Her role was to provide to her superior, John Duffy, the exact same thing that an assistant coach would provide to a head coach. Sometimes doing some things that maybe the head coach didn't want to be bothered with, or doing some things that were so important, but yet seemed so little, but could impact the morale and how the players, in this case employees, viewed themselves and their roles within either the team or the company.
Sounds like she was a coach.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that history. I didn't know that about Jan, so it's great to hear. And it doesn't surprise me that you were sort of the catalyst to try to get that going. And doesn't surprise me at all that Greg Gross jumped on board immediately. Greg has always been great with the GCAA about the honoring of success and excellence, and to be able to honor young assistant coaches. It's a pretty great thing. Now, I was not a young assistant coach in 2003 when I became the first Jan Strickland Award winner. I was 43 years old. I was the oldest assistant coach in college golf. And I really was. I look back on that thinking, my gosh, all these young assistant coaches today. I was 43 working for Mike Holder. I would think I was in my 6th year working for him. And I remember you handing me that trophy in a ceremony after the national championship, which we hosted in Stillwater. And I've still got that photo. I've still got the trophy. It was truly one of the highlights of my college coaching career to this day. And I want to thank you for that. And in a minute, we're going to go over some of the other honorees, but thank you so much for 2003. I'm always be honored to have had that honor. Certainly.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that. And I'm going to jog your memory going back to Stillwater in 2003. This is prior to you receiving the award. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it's always impacted me in a very positive way. It's just a small thing that really, for me, I viewed as a large thing, real large thing. I showed up a little early. I figured I got to figure out where I'm going. So I'm going to try to find Carson Creek. And I found it. And nobody was there except you.
Okay.
And we said hello to each other. And you said, would you like to see the golf course? And I couldn't believe it. And I said, I'd love to. You gave me a cart. And probably after an hour and 15 minutes, you probably thought I was either fishing or lost. Because on every hole, I would get up and I would go on the tee and just look at the layout. Then I would go on to go up to the green and then look at the hole in reverse and see what the differences were. And the differences were dramatic. Heck of a lot more room going green to tee than there was tee to green. Anyway, I've never forgotten that, and I've always appreciated that.
Well, I was always proud of Carson Creek. Loved being there. It was such a peaceful place to be, although the wailing and gnashing of teeth when guys were making bogeys and doubles was not pretty a lot of times. But when you showed up, I thought you need to go see the golf course, and what a week that was for me. I'll never forget it. And I know it did a lot for my career to win that award. But, let's talk about the award. You got it started with Greg Gross to honor Jan Strickland's memory. And it's literally the who's who of assistant coaches over the last 22 years. For one, I was an old assistant coach, and I remember in 2014 when I became an assistant coach again. I was at Alabama for that 1 year.
Yep.
And Jay Sewell, my head coach, brought in the application for the Jan Strickland Award. And he said, here, I want to, it was during the middle of the year. So the season hadn't been finished. He says, I want to nominate you for this. And I said, Jay, I really, really do appreciate that. But this award needs to go to a young coach. If I did win, that would be a wonderful honor, but I've already won this and it needs to go to a young coach. He said, you're right. You're right. It does need to go to a young coach. And if I look back on it, I look back on that, I would love to have gotten that award and we won the national championship that year. But I remembered how much it meant to me to get that award. And I couldn't imagine what it might feel for a really young coach to get an honor like that. And so I look back on it. Some of these names, incredible coaches.
Yes.
Let's talk about 2004, the second year. Bowen Sargent. He was at Tennessee working for Jim Kelso at the time.
Yeah.
Bowen is doing an amazing job in Virginia right now. And you just chime in on some of these guys if you have any stories about any of these guys. But Bowen's one of my favorites, and he was one of Mike Holder's favorites. Mike loved the way that Bowen took care of his business, and he won.
The one thing about Bowen, I wasn't familiar with Bowen. I was familiar with his brother who taught at Oakmont, and then he says, well, my brother's in the college game. I said, okay, and then we run into each other. And I was so impressed with him, as you just mentioned. In fact, what was really impressed, I never knew that he had the sense of humor that he does until he spoke at the eulogy for Coach Richard Sykes. And that is just, he just did a masterful job there. He's always been very impressive.
Yeah, Bowen's great. And he does have a great sense of humor. He's a really, really smart guy. Good player, still a good player.
Yep.
I was not able to make it to Richard's funeral, but I can imagine, I'm sure there were some tears, but I can imagine there was a lot of laughter because Richard was truly one of the greatest guys in college golf history. Funny guy all the way around, smart, and was very competitive.
Yes.
Going through here, how about Christian Newton in 2011? He was working for Bruce Hepler at Georgia Tech. Christian, who's no longer coaching now, he's in the financial business, money managing business, if you will. But Christian was truly one of the good guys in college golf. I mean, I don't know, did you get to know Christian ever or not?
Just vaguely.
Yeah. Bruce hired him for a good reason. He was a great, great young coach, and he had actually worked at Alabama for Jay Sewell before that.
Okay.
And then once he finished with Bruce at Georgia Tech, he became the coach at Colorado State and did some amazing things there. But wonderful, wonderful guy. Ryan Murphy, who coached Jordan Spieth as an assistant coach that year. They won the national championship in 2012, but in 2013, he was given the award. He worked for John Fields, another Hall of Famer. So I was looking through this list, and we can go down this list, but of the 22 winners, 14 of those winners, those individual assistant coach winners of the Jan Strickland Award, coached with and for a Hall of Fame coach. Now, that's a pretty good percentage, but it's actually going to be higher because J.C. Deacon has coached 2 Jan Strickland Award winners at Florida, and Nick Kleinert at Auburn has coached 2 winners. But both of those guys will be in the Hall of Fame one day. They're just too young to be in there right now. And I look at that and I think that's going to be 4 more. So it's really going to be 18 of those 22 winners. So I think there's no accident. It's not a coincidence. These coaches, these Hall of Fame coaches, are hiring great young coaches, and it's great that we can see them honored.
Well, I think if it serves as a reflection of talent and future talent, future capabilities, even though it wasn't designed to do that in the beginning, it's turned into that.
Yes, it has.
And that's the amazing transition that the award is made.
Well, and only one of those coaches is in the Hall of Fame of the 22 winners. That's me, but it's mainly because of an age thing. I was already an old assistant coach, and so a bunch of these coaches on here, and we'll name a few more, will be in the Hall of Fame one day themselves. There's no question. But I want to talk specifically about the 2017 winner as Ryan Blagg. Ryan was my assistant here at Baylor for 6 years. And when he won the award, I got pretty emotional because I got to see on a daily basis the way Ryan took care of his business, how he had a great sense of humor, was unbelievably competitive, was the greatest detail guy I think I've ever been around in my life. And for them to have picked him, and he said that the interview process was pretty rigorous. They went through 2 sets of interviews, and there was a committee, and I thought, that's probably a little deeper than it was that first year when I won. I don't remember anything more than a phone call. But he was very, very impressed with the whole process, and Ryan was thrilled to win the award as well.
I think to that end, Mike, that as the award grew in prominence and as the recipients grew in stature, it kind of dictated what role the entire process would take as far as interviewing and everything along those lines. And I think that's what led to the stages that it went to. And also, one of the things I was amazed at was the support that the nominating head coach in writing would give to their assistants. I mean, lengthy explanations and examples. And it was very time consuming, and it just spoke the world of many of the head coaches who nominated their assistants.
Well, if you think about it, you are so close to the assistant coach because you're working with him every day. There's nothing you're doing in the program the assistant coach doesn't know about. There's nothing he's doing pretty much that you don't know about. So you guys know each other so well. It doesn't surprise me that head coaches desperately want their assistant coach to win the award, to be honored, to be recognized for all the hard work they're doing.
Right.
If you get right down to it, the assistant coach doesn't get nearly enough accolades for all he's doing because he is truly sacrificing, getting paid quite a lot less, working probably a few more hours, doing a lot of things the head coach does not want to do because he did it when he was, the assistant coach, and he doesn't want to do that anymore. So it's great when they can be honored like that.
Oh, go back to the days when your father was a PGA golf professional, right?
Yeah.
And how his assistants handled things or didn't handle things, and how important they were to his operation, which would eventually then impact your life.
For sure. There's no doubt. From 2003 to 2021, I'm going to go for the first 19 years. 17 of those assistant coaches have now been a Division I head coach. 17 of the 19. That's pretty good batting average right there for sure. And as I said earlier, 14 of the 22 actually worked for a Hall of Fame coach. So there's a lot of excellence going on here. There's a lot of things, and it all ties back to the moment you working at TaylorMade and you wanted to honor Jan Strickland's memory, and you did it in something that's stronger now than it's ever been. And I'll mention 2 other things. Annually, the assistant coach at the Arnold Palmer Cup is the previous year's winner of the Jan Strickland Award. And so that's just an amazing honor. And then this year, for the first time ever, the Jan Strickland Award is also going to a non-Division I recipient. Isaiah Logue from Kaiser University and NAIA School, who works for Brandon Miller. He got the award this year, along with Chris Williams at Auburn, was a Division I rep. So
I think it'll be very interesting to see, and you would have much better feel for this than I. Once roster reductions come into effect at the D1 level, how will that impact Division II? And it would seem to me that there's always been quality in coaching at Division II and Division III. But I think there's even going to be greater emphasis now than there has been before, because so many of these guys and maybe women have to find a place to play.
I will tell you that Division II teams and the NAIA teams are going to be stronger than they've ever been, and probably some junior college teams as well. So it's good to see that, but also that's going to require and precipitate a lot of really good coaching at those levels too. So
Right.
you want to honor that as well.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple other assistant coach, John Paul Hebert, who coached at Texas for John Fields, who was a Hall of Fame coach as well. He is now at UNLV. And Bill Alcorn, who coached, he was my volunteer assistant, went from here to the University of Oklahoma and worked for Ryan Hybl, another Hall of Fame coach. And now is the head coach at Texas Christian, TCU, up in Fort Worth. And then finally, J.C. Deacon's most recent hire as an assistant, Dudley Hart, who played the PGA Tour forever. Dudley is a astonishingly good coach. And I it's funny. You wonder how a guy who's played the game his whole life, and you had to be selfish to play the game. You didn't have a choice. You had to kind of get yourself in your little cocoon, stay in there, not let anybody in except the people that really could help you, and then you move on. When you become a coach, you have to completely change that attitude.
It's so well stated.
It's all about the player at that point. And I mean, Dudley has done an amazing, not just because they won a national championship. I'm not talking about that, although JC will tell you Dudley had a big, big part in changing that to where they could win a national championship. But I just look at it and I can see a guy that really wants to help kids chase the dream that he got to live. And it's just
when
really
you think
cool
about
to
it,
see.
Mike, there's, I believe Dudley's from Buffalo, played the PGA Tour. I don't think he ever won on the PGA Tour. Don't know if he ever won collegiately. I could be wrong there. And he turned into a very, very good tour player and equally as good assistant coach. And he brings with him so many assets that he could lend to the players. One, starting with credibility, obviously. And what you say about the cocoon and selfishness takes a special person to break out of that, because that's a lifelong mindset as a player. You've got to be selfish, and sometimes to the detriment.
Truly, you're right. And Dudley actually appeared on this podcast at some point in the last year. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. My brain goes a little vague when it comes to when and who I interviewed, but it came through so strikingly clear during that podcast interview that he loves what he's doing. He's got enthusiasm of it, like he was a kid, again, loving helping young men chase their dreams. And so it's really cool to see. And yes, he's now the oldest assistant coach to ever win this award. He was almost 10 years older than I am now, or I was when I won it.
You think he feels that way because he's been there and done that?
Maybe. I'm not really completely positive about that. I just know you can hear it in his voice. He absolutely loves this. And it's not like he's trying to be their buddies. That's not what he's trying to do, but he's trying to help them chase a dream. And it's really cool. Dudley doesn't sound like a guy in his 50s to me. He sounds like a guy that's literally a young coach excited about what he's doing, and you can feel the enthusiasm. Absolute home run hire by J.C. Deacon. It was unbelievable that J.C. would do that. But so there's been a lot of really, really great young coaches. I said 17 of the first 19 winners. A couple of them, the most recent ones, are not going to be head coaches yet. They're still assistant coaches, the most recent winners. But of the first 19, 17 have been a head coach at one time. That's a great batting average. This award is truly one of the special awards in college golf. And looking back on it, for as long as this award is around, they can always trace it back to your influence, Tim, at TaylorMade in getting the award going, and Greg Gross believing in your vision.
Well, I'd be remiss, Mike, if I didn't mention Eddie Erkmanis and Ryan Ressa in continuing the whole mission with the award and supporting it, because that's been of equal import to anything that relative to the Strickland Award.
Right. Well, you got it started, but you're not going to be around forever, and you're not always going to be there to make sure it continues. So you do need people like Ryan and Eddie who keep that moving forward. So thank you for mentioning them. Great award, the Jan Strickland Award, again, given every year annually to the top assistant coach in Division I, and now a non-Division I winner as well. So I really appreciate that, and I will always be honored. I was looking this morning in my trophy case at the award that you handed me back in 2003, and it's very prominently displayed there because I think it was a big day. And honestly, we hosted the national championship that year, and in those days, the assistant coach did everything. set up every committee, raised the money, did everything. Mike Holder obviously was helping me raise money, but basically I did all the work for the tournament. So I kind of figure like I look back on that, I'm sure glad they gave me the award. It almost killed me that week. Or that year leading up, actually. Nowadays, the assistant coach does not have to do that much when a team hosts
Right.
the national championship. But okay, so that's it on the Jan Strickland Award. I appreciate the history of that and how we got to it. In your opinion, you've witnessed a lot of really great golf in the collegiate world and obviously in the professional world as well. But what are the top three, in your opinion, three most impressive college players you saw personally, worked with personally, and it could be their golf skill or their human characteristics or both? Top three that you can think of.
I'm a little biased because we hung on to two of the three of them. The first would be Brandt Snedeker for his intelligence and his short game. He knew what he could do. He knew what he couldn't do. And he was very intelligent and extremely driven. He didn't possess the physical skills that many people do, somewhat injury prone, but a solid character.
Great player, too.
Yes, yes. The second would be Dustin Johnson, based on pure athleticism and something that he doesn't get enough credit for, and that's also intelligence. He was a very smart player, and he was able to work his way around a golf course visually and emotionally, and have it always work to his benefit, it seemed. The third, first met him when he was 14 years old, and that would be Colin Morikawa. And the reason that I liked him at 14, we had a number of juniors and their parents come in one Saturday to the Kingdom to expose some new product to them. And he was the youngest by at least 2 years, maybe in some cases 3. And he was by far the most mature person there, and also the smallest. And he was so businesslike and so committed and so focused that at the end of it, I was asked to say, okay, who do you like? And I said, I like the kid. And the kid's done all right.
You've got a good eye for talent. You know, he was a podcast guest of mine. I got to know him when he was in college pretty well. And I told people I think he was one of the most prepared players in the last 25 years to go play professional golf. But, you know, he never won an AJGA event. And he told me that when he was on the podcast. He said, I never won an AJGA event. You never won, not even one? No, I never won one. But his was all about long-term improvement and getting better and better and adding things to his arsenal that made him better. And I think he's one of the most impressive guys on tour, period. And yes, you retained him and Dustin, two pretty great players right there, amazing players. Dustin was actually on my Arnold Palmer Cup team when I was a captain in 2007. And I was just smart enough to stay the heck away from him. Just go whip people. Just go whip people. And he was driving at 330 right down the middle and just whipping people.
Wow.
Good threesome right there. Thank you for that. And you picked three, obviously, were really great players. Biggest changes you saw during your college, in your years around college, like the biggest changes. We know the recent changes of NIL, transfer portal, roster cap. I mean, you could go down the list of things in the last 5 years. But when you were in it, what were some of the biggest changes?
Changes in product, number one.
Okay.
That drove a lot. Product from everybody. Support from everybody. So you had, four, hopefully I'm not leaving out anybody, but three main people at that time, certainly with Ping, TaylorMade, and Titleist, just across the board supported so many programs, and they've done such a good job. And Jim Ahern was so key in that role. If we just progress a little bit further, the whole thing about analytics is all well and good, but it still doesn't help anybody get the ball in the hole any quicker. It might justify some practice regimens and the like, but You still have to play.
Okay, so I'm going to chime in here. I agree completely, 100%. The technology is fine. It's great. And I think Hogan would have used a TrackMan, although he was a human TrackMan. But I think he would have used a TrackMan if he thought it would make him a better golfer.
Yes.
So, and he would only use it for the purpose it's needed. I see a lot of guys trying to teach the game with just technology, and they don't understand. You've got hands, you've got eyes, you've got feet, you feel, you have senses taking in everything around you. That's still part of the game. It hasn't left us just because technology's there. And
No.
I think technology gets a little too much credit when honestly, great players are still great players for a lot of other reasons. They've got hands, they've got eyes, they've got feet, they've got senses.
Well, I think if you've spent an hour, let's say, with some of the older players, I mean, guys that are past their Champions Tour careers, spend an hour with them on TrackMan and say, okay, I'm going to move this away now. And now I'm going to ask you to start hitting shots. And you come up with the distances, you come up with the spin rates, you come up with the launch angles. There's no doubt in my mind they could do it.
There's no doubt they could do it. I mean, Lee Trevino was a human TrackMan. He truly was. And Tiger Woods is so impressed with Lee Trevino, getting to spend time with him at this father-son, parent-child tournament the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
Tiger's taken in a lot from him. He just said, that's literally, the guy knows how to play the game. He's just 85, so he can't play it like he used to, but he knows how to play the game. So I think, I don't want to be too old school here, and you and I we're not spring chickens anymore, but don't steal that from a player, because that's part of what still makes him a great player. You don't want to lose that. Use the technology the best way you can to help validate things that you're working on, that type of thing. But don't teach only with technology.
You know, when you mentioned Trevino, I'm thinking about the piece I would see of him on occasion from the 12th hole at Augusta, when he suddenly just pulls the club right out of the bag, takes a look, and then just goes. And I'm thinking, now what's unusual about this picture, right? Because it's so instinctive. It's just nothing but, that's what I'm referring to when I said about seeing and reacting. He saw it and he reacted. Of course, he also sensed it as well. But I think that gets lost, that the more robotic we get. In fact, I'm sure it is. And so therefore, there's no adaptation when we got a wheel that's a little shaky.
I think they've proven it neurologically. The brain was actually wired for adaptation, because our surroundings are constantly changing. Now, I'm not being a scientist here. I don't know what I'm talking about. I know enough to be dangerous, but I know that we are wired for adaptation, not for perfection. And we're playing the game that's the least perfect game that's ever been invented by man. You better know how to adapt. You better know how.
Well said. Very well said.
Well, that's interesting talk there. I didn't know we'd get into that, but I'm glad we did. Thank you. Finally, I want to go through one other thing. Because of all the contributions you've made to college golf, and I know you haven't been with college golf in a few years, you told me before we started this recruiting, you desperately missed those days, that they were so much fun, and so it really was enjoyable for you. I want you to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about you actually being inducted into the Golf Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2014. Talk to me about why you miss it so much.
I miss the environment. I miss being able to relate to the players. And there are many times I have to admit where I could relate better. This is going to sound funny. I felt I could relate better to the player than I could the coaches. Probably, in fact, due in fact to the age of my children. I have 3 boys. So I had to kind of stay in tune with what they were into, so I could make it relatable, so that I understood where these kids were coming from. But I just love the vitality. I love the energy, and I love the honesty. And sometimes I would get very disappointed that somebody wasn't honest with their emotion or made excuses. I know that sounds somewhat of a negative, but it's factual. It was just a great environment. It's a portion of my career in which somebody said, okay, we're going to pay your expenses. You're going to do this and that, but we're not going to pay you. You're not going to get a salary. Even though my wife wouldn't like it, I probably would have said yes, because I would have done it without getting paid. I enjoyed it so much.
For all the reasons you just described, I think one day I'll miss college coaching the same way. There's no doubt. Yeah. Mainly being around young people who have so much energy, so much vibrance, that are so excited to be where they are. This is their dream. So I think I'm going to miss that most one day.
I agree.
Go ahead.
As far as I never expected in 2014 to, number one, I didn't know I was nominated for the Hall of Fame. Number two, if I was nominated, I didn't think I would ever receive anything. And I did. And I still get emotional about it. Gary Hart was the first person associated with the manufacturer, Carlton Manufacturing, when he was inducted, and rightfully so, because he did so much. Cricket has been part of his resume, has been with Nike and Ping. I'm still waiting for Jim Ahern, but it meant a great deal to me. Very humble.
You loved the arena, college golf arena, so much. To be honored for the work you did in that arena had to feel great. It must have. I think it's also nice when hard work, even though it was a labor of love for you, you said you'd almost do it for just the expenses. You wouldn't take a salary, but to be honored and to be thanked for that labor of love is also a very special thing. So I'm proud to say I'm in the same Hall of Fame with you. I think it's great.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Well, Tim, I got to tell you, this has been great. You gave me some history I didn't know about, which I was hoping you would do. But it was also just nice to have an old pal from, days gone by in college golf world back on here to kind of let people. A lot of guys are going to listen to this. Are going to go, God, I haven't seen Tim in the longest time. Hopefully you get some texts, emails, or phone calls out of this. I would love for that to happen for you.
I appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure. Really has. And I have texted you more than a few times on some of the sessions that you've had, some of your podcasts, including your book. I'm not patronizing when I say this, but it's an entire warehouse of knowledge that has gone untapped, and people have to recognize what you offer, and they should, because it's all out there to be taken.
Well, thank you. I'm just a compilation of all those people that have helped me along the way, and you are as well.
Yes.
So it's great when we can give back in a certain way. And in one way, I kind of feel like having a guy like you on this podcast is giving back, because you shared a lot of wisdom today, a lot of things that young coaches need to hear, should hear, and should listen to and take advice. So very well said today. I appreciate you joining me. I really do, Tim. And I want to wish you the best in 2025 and going forward. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you, Mike. Great to see you. Great to speak with you.
Absolutely. We'll see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.